The laws of physics seem to change so much when you're there. When you're in Antarctica and there's no wind, it is literally just silent. And you get basically super hearing. So you add together the impossible to tell visual distance, the incredible way that sound was managed, these magical forms that were made out of just ice and rock. That was really my favorite place I've ever been.
Maybe you could just a bit highlights about your Antarctica experience, because I'm really interested in that as well.
One of the things that I really found amazing about Antarctica, and until I went to space, it was by far the most amazing place I've ever been on the surface of the Earth. I mean, on the surface of the Earth, there's literally no place more amazing than the interior of Antarctica, if you ask me. And one of the reasons it comes up right away is how the laws of physics seem to change so much when you're there. And the first way I would describe that has to do with your visual perception of depth and distance. You know, if we step out on the street here, you can tell things are far away because of a large number of clues, right? There's the buildings are getting short, the buildings and trees are getting shorter, the roads or the parallax is making the roads look smaller. But even if you didn't have those, there's specular hazing to where the dust in the air makes it kind of grayer and more black and white as things get more and more towards the horizon, and things like that. But in the interior of Antarctica, other than what you bring with you and the air, there's really only two physical substances. There's the ice and there's rock, and there is nothing else. And there's no specular hazing. There's no dust in the air. The air is perfectly crystal clear. And so you really can't tell distance as you look across that. And the same thing's true for rocks. You know, you go like, oh, there's a mountain range in the distance, but somewhere between me and that mountain range are some rocks on the ground. And you go, you might speculate, well, that's a rock the size of a car that is, 100 meters away. But it actually could very well be the rock the size of a baseball that's 10 meters away, or a rock the size of the house that is, a mile away, and you really can't tell the difference. And we were there hunting for meteorites, and so we would go like, oh, look, there's something over there. Let's go march over there and pick it up. And you'd start marching, and your friends would recede into the distance. And 2 miles later, you'd find yourself at this rock that you thought was like a fist size. It's gigantic, and clearly nothing you can pick up. And if you add to that sort of visual deception, there's a similar one about sound. When you're in Antarctica and there's no wind, it is literally just silent. It is a completely different kind of silence. You're like, I don't know about you, but if I'm in a super quiet place, I can hear a tiny ringing in my ears, which I think most people can. Most adults have been to too many loud concerts or whatever, and have a tiny little bit of, or hopefully not too much, ringing in their ear. But it turns out that if you get in a place that's truly silent for long enough, that ringing goes away. That ringing is sort of an agitation in the nerve endings in your inner ear, and you get basically super hearing. And that super hearing is magnified because if I were to talk to you across the ice of Antarctica, there is a hard rock ice floor below us, no walls or other obstructions. And so that hard floor acts like a waveguide to the sound. And so you find that a tiny little sound travels a long way and you can hear it really well. And so when you camp out on the ice, people camp their tents really far apart, because otherwise the snoring of the person in the next tent will keep you up all night, night being daytime. And I remember one time when I was in one trip, my second trip to Antarctica, I was lying in bed trying to get some, take a rest, and I heard what sounded like a fly in my tent, and buzzing in the inside of my tent. And at first I'm going like, where is that fly? And then I went, wait a minute, there can't be a fly. There is no life, no large life here in the interior of Antarctica. So I'm going like, well, what is that sound I'm hearing? And I look around my tent, and it sure sounds like a fly, buzzing against the tent on the inside. I sit up, don't see it. It's nothing in my tent. So I unzip my tent and I look outside, And at the next tent, which is 20 meters away, there's a tiny little soft breeze that is rubbing the zipper of that tent against the fabric. And that little tiny rubbing, I can hear super well as if it's a buzzing creature in my tent. So you add together the impossible to tell visual distance, the incredible way that sound was managed, these magical forms that were made out of just ice and rock is formed into this massive array of spectacular visual scenes, added up to that being, till I made it to off the surface of the earth. That was really my favorite place I've ever been.